Hey guys, it's Mad Dog. So today we are doing a review of Scooby Doo and the Witch's Ghost slash Thanksgiving slash Halloween movie. So, alright, let's see. So, the movie starts out with the title, and then we just go into this museum of some kind. I mean, we don't know where this is exactly. And then there's the curator or whatever. And then he's all alone. And then like all the characters are like wearing disguises, pretending to be statues. And then blah 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 blah, pretty much, And then like Shaggy and Scooby are hiding. And then they warn the guy there's someone behind him. And then he freaks out, of course. And then yep, just cue the Scooby Doo music. Blah blah blah. And then someone trips them before like Shaggy and Scooby, die. And then they get arrested. Blah blah blah. And then they say like meddling writer, I guess, instead of kids, like they usually do. And then turns out it was Ben Ravencraft who helped them out. Coincidence? I think not. You'll see what I mean later on. And then blah blah blah. Ben is like, oh, you want to go to like Oakhaven or whatever? And then like Velma's like, yes, I want to go with you, 'cause you're so cute. And then blah blah blah, they go, to Oakhaven. And then they're just driving, the usual. And then they're fighting. But then it's usually like a quiet little town. But then it's like busy because of Sarah Ravencraft, his ancestor. Pretty much like, they're pretty much making like money off of a dead ancestor. And then there's a ghost. Supposedly ghost. Yes. And then blah 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 blah. Like, pretty much Shaggy and Scooby are, wants to get something to eat. As usual. Nothing new about that. Really. Then they just go to some restaurant in town. Well, the rest of the gang is like waiting for Sarah's ghost. But then blah 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 blah, it doesn't show up. And then blah 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 blah, pretty much like, more pointless stuff. But then there's more stuff. Blah blah blah, pretty much just them like looking for clues and stuff. And then Shaggy and Scooby are pretty much leaving the restaurant. Pretty much. And then they get scared by the Hex Girls. But they think they're like witches. But they're not. They're just goths. And then blah 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 blah, pretty much. And then they like run into like the gang. The rest of the gang, and then blah 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 blah, pretty much just. And then they like wanna like split up. Like to look for more clues. Which is never a good idea. I mean, I don't know why they do. And then blah blah blah, they clues, like Scooby Doo and Shaggy take the mayor. And then, like, they start following him, and then, like, you know, he almost, like, hears them at some point. And then there's the other one. And then Fred and Daphne are, like, following Thorn. Like, one of the leader. And then they think, like, she's a witch. But she's not. She's just trying to, like, you know, do her vocal cords. And then, blah, 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 you know, the usual. And then they go for, like, a plan to catch the ghost. And then Velma and Ben Ravencroft, like, look, find, like, a cherry picker theory. And then blah, 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 pretty much, blah, blah, blah. They pretty much reveal. And then they set a trap. And then they, like, then they tell, like, the rest of the gang, like, the Hex Girls to come out, and then, yeah, they catch the bad guy. Which was, like, the whole, like, scheme. And then blah, 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 blah. And then they go, like, looking for a book. A spell book. And then blah, 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 blah. More craziness. And then, like, Ben is, like, turning into an evil warlock, you know. Pretty much. And then he tries to, like, do the spell, but then, like, he keeps on getting interrupted. And then, you know, they're just driving around like crazy. Sporadically. And then, blah, blah, blah. Blah, 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 blah. And pretty much more stuff. And then, like, he does the spell, then he reveals the witch. The actual witch this time. And then she's all like, you know, mad at the world, of course. And then blah, 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 blah. Pretty much more chaotic stuff. And then they try to, like, give her the book, you know. And then they have to use Salah. Because he's, like, wicked or something. And then she reads the spell book, and then she just goes back in the book. The witch. And then, like, she takes Ben Ravencroft with her. And then they pretty much, that's about it. Whew. And then, like, the mayor is like, oh my god, there's nothing. No witch, no village, and, you know, or something. And then they find a bigger attraction, the turkey. And then the Hex Girls, of course. And then they do, like, earth, wind, and fire, and air, and stuff. And then the credits. Cue. So, I give it, like, a good 10 out of 10. So, bye.